What is the most terrifying fact the average person does not know? Story 1. In 2012, scientists found 1,458 new species of bacteria living in the belly button. Everyone's belly button ecology is unique like a fingerprint, and one volunteer's belly button harbored bacteria that had previously been found only in soil from Japan, where he had never been. Story 2. We as humans are a bacteria-based species. We really are. It's called the human microbiome and is very important. All the bacteria in and on our body serve some function. We're still figuring out most of them. I know there are currently studies trying to determine the importance of bacteria in the body to help determine why people may be sick. For instance, some gut bacteria that aids in digestion. Someone may be missing most of this bacteria, and as such, are having severe digestion issues. So scientists want to see if adding more bacteria, or taking more away, may fix their problem and stuff. Don't be afraid of bacteria. As long as it's in the right place, you're okay. Story 3. A terrifying number of bridges in the United States are listed as fracture critical, meaning that if a single structural weight-bearing component fails, like a bolt breaking somewhere in the structure, significant portions of the structure or the entire structure will collapse. Story 4. There is a remote chance that the water bear is actually an alien species not native to planet Earth. It occupies its own phylum, having no known closely related species and only speculatively related species in the fossil record. It is also the most resilient animal known. It is known to be able to survive pressure of 6,000 atmospheres, equivalent to 6 times the pressure found at the deepest point in the ocean, the vacuum of space. Temperatures as cold as 1 degree above zero and temperatures hot enough to exceeding the boiling point of water. Radiation 100 times higher than the lethal dose for a human. Without water for 100 years or more, being able to enter a dehydrated dormant state when water is scarce. When water is encountered again, it can rehydrate and continue on like nothing happened. Is it actually an alien species? Probably not, but it has been demonstrated to be able to survive many of the trickier parts of deep space voyages. Story 5. The fact that most facts actually have expiration dates, and many facts that we rely on to anchor our understanding of the world will eventually be proven wrong and replaced with better, more accurate facts. Not only that, but future generations will laugh at us and think we were completely stupid for believing such obviously silly things about the universe and the stuff in it. Story 6. There are about 1,500 species of organisms living on and in your body. All totaled, the cells of these organisms outnumber your human cells, and the only reason you don't look like a walking column of gray-green goo is that your cells are on average bigger than theirs. Story 7. Studying criminology opened my eyes to a couple of things I wish I didn't know. The amount of random violence. Random violence is the most terrifying thing in the world to me. The fact that there are a lot of people out there who will attack a totally random person for essentially no reason whatsoever is horrific. You can stay out of trouble, stay out of bad areas, be a good person, and still have some kid smash your skull in with a hammer as you ride by on a bicycle. We don't really hear about the more horrific on television. The news loves to report on murders and serial killers, but there is a fine balance. They want you to be disturbed and scared enough to keep watching, but not so disgusted that you'll change the channel. A lot of the more bizarre, gruesome crimes go very unreported. Story 8. Well, it's been in the news, but people in the healthcare business have known for years that disease-causing microorganisms are becoming increasingly resistant to antibiotics. There's several reasons, many of which are political, religious, and financial, which means that we're approaching a state where antibiotics don't work anymore. The world would literally become a place like pre-penicillin times where simple infections, minor cuts, etc. would and could be life-threatening. This is an insane fact that more of us need to pay attention to and find a solution to. One of the crazy things is that a major cause of this is that so many antibiotics are being prescribed by doctors, not because the patient actually needs them, but because the doctors do not want to get sued. Story 9. There is a parasite that can only breed in cat stomachs. It infects mice, controls them, and removes their fear of cats to allowing them to be eaten and for the parasite to get into a cat's stomach for breeding. It's also present in 1/3 of humans, and numerous studies have shown a direct correlation between infection and suicidal behavior. Story 10. Having seen a lot has been covered already, I thought this deserved some attention. As of today, cluster headaches. Was aware that they existed based on living with an episodic migraine sufferer who has said to me, it could be worse, after I told her how bad I felt for her seeing what she has to go through. Having seen that video today, it has put a lot of perspective on the life I've been given and the pain others are going through. I can still hear the scream from the video in my head. In 2013, only $19 million was given towards migraine research by the NIH, which is 0.012% of the total budget. $49.38 is allocated towards diabetes research per person suffering from diabetes. $12.25 is allocated towards asthma research per person suffering from asthma. 36 cents is allocated towards migraine research per person suffering from migraines. Story 11. There are about 7.165 billion people on this planet, or 7,165,000,000. Every day, 150,000 of them die, and odds are, on the average day, you weren't aware of any of them. Someone you know might pass every year depending on where you live, and of those, you'll only truly care about one every couple of years or more. You're just like that. When you die, a few dozen or maybe a few hundred will be all sad and will remember you for a while. Let's assume 500 people know about you and your death. That's 0.0000007% of the population of the Earth. But wait, only around 100 of those care enough to come to your funeral. That's about 0.0000001% of the population that will come to your funeral. The vast majority won't even be aware of your passing, let alone able to care. You're not even a blip on the radar. You're an eraser shaving wiped off of a desk. Story 12. A year ago, the most terrifying fact that the average person didn't know was that the United States government was spying on all of its citizens unconstitutionally and had secretly broken huge swaths of computing and telecommunications infrastructure, including the technology we use to secure our communications. Today, the only people who dispute this are trolling. Here's to Ed Snowden. Story 13. Our consumption of fossil fuels is growing faster than our production is. Experts agree that sometime within the next century, that's generous, many estimates are much sooner, our production will begin to decline due to the unavailability of easy-to-access natural resources. Peak oil, they call it. That, and the average American meal travels 1,000 miles and burns a liter of crude. A huge portion of our population is urban and suburban, and therefore relies very heavily on transportation for everything. When we hit peak oil, everything is going to become very expensive, and it will take more than a decade for transportation infrastructure to change over to alternate energy sources, assuming appropriate technology is available when the starts. Even though it's easy to see coming, I am convinced we will be caught with our pants around our ankles because anyone in the position to do anything about it isn't going to. It's too expensive. It will make this Great Recession thing look like child's play. Story 14. How financially illiterate a large portion of the population is. Not only Americans or a specific nation, but globally. This is a major cause for concern. They have the general mindset of just saying that it's too complicated and difficult to understand, but it really isn't. All of it is common sense, really. Story 15. Right now, on your body, there is 1,000 to 2,000 mites called demodex. They measure at 1/3 of a millimeter and live inside hair follicles. They particularly like eyelashes and eyebrows. They are photophobic, so only come out at night, generally while you are asleep, and breed. So, yeah, even if you aren't getting laid, something on your face is. Every night. Story 16. In the U.S., the Supreme Court has ruled that innocence is not a standard for an appellate habeas relief. In plain English, it means that in the U.S., You can be wrongfully convicted of murder, and everybody from juror to judge to executioner can agree without a shadow of a doubt that you're innocent, and you can still be put to death. Collin versus Penholster. Story 17. All information technology increases exponentially. Humans will either be changed or replaced so much that in 200 years, humanity as we know it will be ancient, primitive culture. Our AI overlords might be pricks. Story 18. That if you own a cat, there is over a 50% chance that you have a brain parasite that is proven to affect behavior in mammal brains, including but not limited to making the smell of cat urine more attractive and increasing risk of schizophrenia and other neurological disorders. Story 19. Most any random hit to the head of a healthy social person can cause enough brain damage to fundamentally change who you are as a person, be that a sudden inclination to extreme violence, turning on your friends, etc. Story 20. The perception of time changes as we age, and we feel time going by faster, mostly due to a lack of novelty. For a 4-year-old, 1 year is 25% of his or her life and will feel like an eternity. For a 40-year-old, 1 year is 2.5% of his or her life and will go by a lot faster. If you apply this to someone who lives 85 years, the perceptual halfway point is about 20 years old. That's right. From your own perspective, if you're over 20, you're more than halfway to the grave. Story 21. Governments of countries are run mostly by people who actually do not give a crap about the people. They know they are faced with many cultural, economic, and environmental catastrophes, and they do little to nothing. As long as they make plenty of money to ensure the survival of their own house, they don't care, and everything else takes a back seat. Story 22. There is a certain class of proteins that, if ingested, will cause a chain reaction of converting healthy proteins in your brain to destructive, unusable ones, eventually wrecking your nervous system and turning you permanently insane, or killing you by making it impossible for you to fall asleep. Either way, the mortality rate of this is 100%. These proteins are virus-like, but not true life forms, so conventional methods of sterilization will not work on contaminated food or medical instruments. In fact, it's quite difficult to eradicate contamination of these proteins, because these proteins must be broken down at the molecular level, down to the very last molecule, because leaving even a single protein molecule unharmed is enough to instigate this destructive chain reaction of protein corruption in the human nervous system. Prions are evil. Story 23. The fact that there are concentration camps in North Korea that rival those of the Nazi regime. There are smaller numbers in these camps, and they have different goals, but if you research it, the torture methods, murders, lifestyles, etc. are strikingly similar. This article sort of surveys it and might be hyped up, but if you look into the actual resources put out by the UN and Amnesty, you'll find it unbelievable. Story 24. Mark Manayan puts it best. Unless you have cancer or something equally dire, the healthcare system in the U.S. sucks. The World Health Organization ranked the U.S. 37th in the world for healthcare, despite the fact that we spend the most per capita by a large margin. The hospitals are nicer in Asia, with European-educated doctors and nurses, and cost a tenth as much. Something as routine as a vaccination costs multiple hundreds of dollars in the U.S. and less than $10 in Colombia. And before you make fun of Colombian hospitals, Colombia is 28th in the world on that WHO list, 9 spots higher than the US. A routine STD test that can run you over $200 in the US is free in many countries to anyone, citizen or not. An American guy living in Buenos Aires got knee surgery on his ACL that would have cost $10,000 in the US for free. But this isn't really getting into the real problems of our health. Our food is killing us. I'm not going to go crazy with the details, but we eat chemically laced crap because it's cheaper and tastes better. Profit, profit. Our portion sizes are absurd. More profit. And we are by far the most prescribed nation in the world, and our drug masks cost 5 to 10 times more than they do even in Canada. In terms of life expectancy, despite being the richest country in the world, we come in a paltry 38th, right behind Cuba, Malta, and the United Arab Emirates, and slightly ahead of Slovenia, Kuwait, and Uruguay. Enjoy your Big Mac. Story 25. Try to imagine a life without timekeeping. You probably can't. You know the month, the year, the day of the week. There is a clock on your wall or the dashboard of your car. You have a schedule, a calendar, a time for dinner or a movie. Yet all around you, timekeeping is ignored. Birds are not late. A dog does not check its watch. Deer do not fret over passing birthdays. Man alone chimes the hour, and because of this, man alone suffers a paralyzing fear that no other creature endures. A fear of time running out. Mitch Albom, The Timekeeper. Story 26. Under the hood, almost every piece of software is mediocre at best. Commercial apps, entertainment apps, even financial applications. All of it. Sure, they start off organized and proper, but then deadlines and managers get involved. Budget runs thin, and the client wants just one more thing. And you can give him his shiny feature, provided this other piece of functionality is done by a half-drunk monkey who's never even heard of spaghetti code, let alone how to prevent it. But really, what is the client going to notice the most? A big, shiny piece of the program that's missing? Or shoddy, but functioning code that will let a 12-year-old Russian kid steal all of your customers' data 4 years down the road? Story 27. One of the most terrifying facts that I think most people don't realize the implications of, even if they know it, is that a car driving at 60 miles per hour travels 88 feet per second. Ask a person if they would be willing to drive a car at 60 miles per hour 88 feet down a busy highway while blindfolded, and they would think you are nuts. But those same people think nothing of taking their eyes off the road for just a second to look at their phones or change the radio station or talk to somebody in the back seat. Story 28. We might never leave our solar system, ever. The nearest system to our own is Alpha Centauri. It is 4.37 light-years away, give or take. The speed of light is 671 million miles per hour. So if you do the math, carry the 1, we'll probably never reach another solar system. Let's pretend that we figure out a system to accelerate us to those speeds, just for shits and giggles. The energy required to reach those speeds would be immense, and we would need to double that energy, as the energy required to accelerate from those speeds would be identical to the energy needed to accelerate. If it is manned, g-forces would need to be survivable. So acceleration and deceleration would need to be relatively slow, and if we are hoping that the craft will return, double the energy again. This is just interstellar travel. Don't even get me started on intergalactic travel. Most experts agree that we will probably never escape our own solar system. There are futurists and other hopeful folks, but there is very little chance. Even the most advanced theories we have are insufficient. Look at it this way. The energy required to send an unmanned probe to another star would at least be 100 times the energy output of the entire planet in a year. If we have access to that sort of energy, you'd hope we'd put it towards earthly things first. Story 29. Almost all of the food in your grocery store comes from about 4 to 5 major companies, and they really don't care what you're eating, just as long as you're buying their product. That means tons of preservatives and chemicals to make your food look pretty that really shouldn't be in your body. Oh, and the overuse of high fructose corn syrup makes us fat, while the lack of nutrition makes us unhealthy. America is fat and yet malnourished. Story 30. The United States is essentially a bought and paid for plutocracy, and a revolution on the scale of France 1792 or Russia 1917 is coming. Although I can't say I would be too upset about the Koch brothers or the Waltons facing the guillotine, considering the damage they're doing. Story 31. There is absolutely no evidence leading to the conclusion that you will still be alive 5 minutes after reading this sentence. It's highly improbable, but absolutely possible. An artery can pop in your brain. you can have a heart attack. The fact that last time you checked you were healthy and that you are not right now in a dangerous situation just lowers your probability of dying in the next 5 minutes by a lot. But erasing it? No. Story 32. A particle of matter the weight of a US quarter dollar, traveling at 0.99999 the speed of light in the Earth's frame of reference, would be completely undetectable and would have a kinetic energy of 1.134 1017 joules. For comparison, the largest nuclear weapon ever tested, Tsar Bomba, at 50 megatons, was 2.4 1017 joules. This means this slightly subliminal quarter will have a roughly 23.6 megaton yield. Story 33. As if we have a choice, we are already beaming radio waves into space. It's also utterly implausible that we'd be able to contact an advanced civilization anytime soon. Detect, maybe, but certainly not contact. We are limited to the velocity of light. Maybe this will be a concern in 10,000 plus years, and even then, this idea that there are conquering aliens roaming the galaxy to subjugate planets to their whim is straight out of the Sci-Fi Channel. With the technology needed for travel around the solar systems, it's likely that we'd be dealing with a vastly intelligent species much older than we that would be of a different character than the evolutionary programmed beings we are used to in our fiction. Story 34. There are more tigers in captivity in the USA than remain in the wild. Every species of ape, besides humans, is highly endangered because of humans. Virtually every large terrestrial predator, tigers, lions, etc., is endangered to one degree or another. Fish stocks have crashed up to 90% in some parts of the world due to human overfishing. The coming sea level and the temperature rise is only going to exacerbate these issues, in addition to producing far larger numbers of extreme weather events than people dealt with in the past. None of the above statements is up for debate anymore in the scientific community. Like gravity, death, and taxes, they are now inevitable. Smoke 'em if you got 'em.